What's up, YouTube? It is Chaz Desmond here. I am gonna make a reaction video to the Officer Tatum talking about it's all BLM's fault. Now, why did I decide to make a reaction to this video? I don't necessarily agree that we can blame a whole group of people, and I just want to hear what he has to say before I make any sort of assertions or judgment about his opinion. So let's just jump right into it.
And let's get into this. So people have been asking me to make a video about this to speak on the demise and the sad state of affairs in some of these inner cities across the country. I mean, I am at a loss for words as to how I feel about young kids getting mowed down in the streets by thugs, gangbangers, and unnecessary violence.
I just want to make a quick point. It is not thugs and gangbangers only. If you look to the murders of the unarmed black teenager in the Chaz Chop Zone, those were Antifa militant types. Those are not thugs or gangbangers per his words. I don't like grouping any sort of person or people into stereotypes. It's just, that's not my style. I'm an individualist. I want to take people as individuals, and I don't think most people who participate in Black Lives Matter, or I don't think many people who participate in Black Lives Matter advocate for the death of black children, or at all, especially a black girl. So I don't really agree with what he has to say, but let's continue.
And the one that touched me the most is the Sicarius situation. The young girl who was in the backseat of her mom's car in Georgia, going close to where Rayshard Brooks was killed at. They got off the on-ramp. There was a barricade put up by BLM protesters. And as they were turning around to leave, shots started being fired. Initially, I thought, and I think a lot of people were reporting that they shot directly at her car, but that wasn't necessarily the case. I think it was a shootout between two individuals. Multiple shots hit her car, and the young girl, Sicaria, got shot in the process. She literally told her mom, "Mom, I'm hit." She died in her mom's arms. I mean, it breaks my heart to think about that, because I have a child, and I could not begin to imagine the feeling that I would have if some senseless nuts decide they're going to shoot each other, two black people shooting each other, and end up resulting in the death of my child.
100% agree with him on that. Hard to argue about a mother losing her 8-year-old daughter. That's just wrong, and I don't know which way you cut it. It doesn't look good. I wouldn't call them thugs and gangbangers. I don't know these people, but I would never advocate for the death of an 8-year-old girl, and I think it's pretty wrong that they were shot. And then I will say one of the worst things I see between the algorithms and social media and the people around me is that if this was the other way around, there would be more protests, there would be more riots, there would be more people breaking into spaces that they don't belong and burning things to the ground. But because it was two black men killing a black girl, 8-year-old girl, nothing, where's the outrage? And I do think that's what he's trying to say by it's all BLM's fault. I don't know if I agree with that messaging, but I do agree that the media is complicit in dividing the country. And I think it's wrong that we don't hold these people. I think we should hold them accountable. I think it would make sense to me to have just as much power for Sicaria, the 8-year-old who was murdered, as for George Floyd or Rayshard Brooks. But because it's not something that they feel they can fight, maybe I'm just not sure why people were standing up for George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks and not standing up for this 8-year-old girl. Because I haven't seen any protests or anyone on social media talking about it, other than conservatives, which is nuts that an 8-year-old black little child doesn't get any scrutiny from liberal media, and instead it's conservatives and Republicans who are talking about the death of this 8-year-old and how it's wrong. Talk about clown world.
I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to deal, man. I wouldn't be able to deal with that. And so my prayers go out to her family, and she's not the only one. Even that day, she wasn't the only one that lost her life. There were several other people that died, and multiple people were shot. But the reason why I'm making this video primarily because I want us as a community to support her mother, because that is a tough loss. Not only is it going to be difficult burying your own child, but to even proceed after that. And so there's a GoFundMe for her family. We've communicated with her family. I'll put the link in the description section. So if you find it on your heart to support them, go to the description section, link in the GoFundMe, and donate.
I just want to pause and say I commend Officer Tatum for helping this family through this terrible tragedy that could have honestly been prevented. And you know, he's gonna talk later on in the video about how much it's made, but at the current date it's July 14th, and it's currently raised $276,000, and they were trying to raise $100,000. So it doubled what it was supposed to make. In the hands of the state, from the leftist perspective, the state is oppressive, and they would argue that it's not oppressive to me, and that's fine. But if it's oppressive to people of color, what's going to prevent them from being oppressive to me? You could look up a guy, Tony Tempa, very similar story to George Floyd. White guy, died at the hands of the police. It's a terrible story, and the video is tragic. So police oppression is not limited to one skin color. It might be disproportionate, but there's probably some underlying causes of the disproportionate activity, and we don't know. I don't know. I'm not a scholar. I'm just a concerned citizen who's wanting to raise his voice. Let's keep the video going.
Let me say this, because I'm trying not to get emotional when I talk about this, and I'm gonna talk about the other young people who have lost their lives to gun violence in the inner city. But let's talk about this for a minute. They raised tens of millions of dollars for George Floyd in a matter of weeks. Last time I checked Sicaria's GoFundMe, it was at, I don't know, maybe $1,000. A young girl loses her life. They only get $2,000, $3,000. This grown man who made poor decisions on his part that led him in a position to be in an interaction with this police officer. And he gets millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. What about Sicaria's family? What about her mom and dad? There was an innocent little girl. And where's Black Lives Matter? Where are y'all at? Can't even get no real money raised for the girl.
When he made this video, there was no money raised for the young child. Now there's over $250,000, which is amazing. Kind of not what he's saying, but he does make a very valid point. I think it's inequitable. It doesn't make any logical sense that George Floyd can be on drugs, can offer arguably counterfeit money. Now, I don't know if it was counterfeit or not. I'm just, from the story, that's what they say. He was on drugs. He gave counterfeit money to a convenience store. Then the cops came. They put him in cuffs, and then there's like a chunk of video missing, and then all of a sudden you see them for 9 minutes laying on him as he's drugged out, screaming, "I can't breathe." It's messed up. I don't think that's right. But for the media to talk up George Floyd like he was a national hero and not give this 8-year-old a chance, I really haven't seen this story at all. And then claim that you care about Black Lives Matter. I think it's wrong. I think it doesn't make any sense that you can speak up for one black life and then remain silent when another black life disappears from the planet and decides to leave. She didn't choose to leave. Someone chose for her, and she might have had some sort of agreement, but that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it just. I think it's an injustice, and I think it's wrong that people aren't talking about it. But they'll talk about George Floyd. He's very right on that.
It just breaks my heart, man. It makes me so frustrated, man. And that's not the only situation that has happened. There, in a span of I think 2 weekends, we had 9 kids whose lives were taken just randomly. Fools doing drive-bys at barbecues. Come on, man. And what does the same politicians say? We got to do better. We got to do better. We got to do better. Y'all been saying this for decades. What are you actually going to do? Clearly, gun legislation don't work. Chicago is the strictest gun laws in the country, and they have the most gun violence. What are you going to really do? Now, I'll tell you what you should be doing. You should be changing the narrative. You should be holding people accountable. You should take your behind in the community and talk to the people that you work for and say enough is enough. This no snitching stuff is over. We need to focus on us. Stop worrying about them doggone police. We don't need to be defunding. This is what the leaders should be saying in that city. We don't need to be worried about defunding the police. We should be defunding the criminal element in our own communities first.
Now, him saying that we should defund the criminal elements first, I don't know if that's necessarily a great solution. Now, do I think defunding the police is a better solution? Not at all. Maybe the demilitarization of police. I think a great thing to do would be to rehabilitate a lot of the military gear that a lot of police officers carry and do something else with it. I mean, for police officers to have tanks against the citizens of the United States is very not the direction I would like the country to go in. I think most of the country is good. I think most people are good, and I was raised in a very liberal city. I was raised in a city that was predominantly Latino, not white at all. I would not say that would be the case. We'd have to go through my high school yearbook and do some quantification numbers. But if anyone recognizes me and I grew up in a city in Northern Virginia, and there's a lot of government contractors, sure, but my experience was that I was in a way a minority because most of the popular kids were not white kids. I mean, the most popular kid in school was a black guy who played football. He was the talk of the town. I mean, it wasn't Blake. Anyway, that being said, I understand to a point where he's coming from, and I do think that we should be demilitarizing the police. I think that's an ideal scenario for all parties. I do believe Black Lives Matter, and I do believe all lives matter, and I believe we should be allowed to say both and not face scrutiny or dehumanization or calling people names. We all have a right to an opinion, and I think it's a dangerous game to try and silence someone because they have an opinion you don't agree with. And that's one thing I see a lot of people on the left trying to do. If you have an opinion, look, the president of Goya Foods said one nice thing about Trump. Now everyone wants to boycott Goya Foods. I don't understand how Trump can give hundreds of millions of dollars to historically black colleges. The black unemployment pre-COVID was the lowest it's ever been in history, and yet people still have the claim that he's anti-black. That's so illogical. By what metrics are you gauging his anti-blackness? I don't understand. Please share with me so I can be informed, because I would love to be informed. Let's continue the video.
They the one out here hurting our babies, not the police.
I don't agree.
It irks me. 2 weekends. More kids have been killed in the inner city in just 2 weekends than the last 2 years of police-involved shootings that have killed adult men who are, majority of them are committing crimes. You're talking about in 2 weekends, we have more children die at the hands of thugs than we have adults who are behaving improperly, who are unarmed and killed by police in 2 years.
How do we know they're thugs? Does he know all the perpetrators of the people who murdered these children? I don't think so. And if he does, I'd like to know. He doesn't mention it in this video as far as I can tell. I don't necessarily agree with that rhetoric. I think it's a dangerous narrative. You can't portray all people as thugs or gangbangers. Like, how do you know that? You don't know that. And it makes people on the left look at you like you're some sort of racist. And I like Officer Tatum. I like what he has to say. That's why I'm making this video, because I agree with him on a lot of points. But I don't necessarily agree with everything.
What's that, 104 weeks? 104 weeks is 2 weeks. Come on, man. Y'all, I don't know what to say anymore. It is getting to a level of sheer embarrassment. And people always tell me, Brandon, you need to go out there to Chicago. I don't live there. All I can do is facilitate things like Blexit and other things where we can put people that live there on the streets, getting them involved in the community. I can go once or twice, but I don't live in Chicago. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to make videos like this to wake people up, to get them thinking.
100% agree with him. You can't be everywhere at once. Brandon is doing his best, has a family, and he can't put his life on the line to advocate for people who are not in his community. That doesn't make any sense. I hope that Blexit and other organizations that he's part of can unite people of all races and try and show us that we're all equal. I think there's so much divisiveness and like cultural Marxism where if you don't have the right thoughts, you will be canceled. It just happened with one of the New York Times opinion editors. He signed a letter blaming cancel culture as this negative thing, and then he had to resign. I mean, talk about the leopards eating your face. Cancel culture, the left, the militant, the left who wants people to be canceled for having an opinion. Sometimes they're not great opinions. But if a family member of mine has an opinion and I'm fired because of a family member's opinion, that is so wrong. That is so not right. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you are. That's wrong. Let's listen to Brandon.
Because to be honest, the fastest way to change this is not going to be through law enforcement. It's not going to be through some program that they set up and facility that they pay for. It's going to be a cultural rethinking. It's going to be personal responsibility. That's what's going to change these things.
Yes, he's 100% right. It is the culture. The culture shapes the government, because when people are out in the streets burning stuff down, trashing the place, when you have tens of thousands of people in the middle of a pandemic, mind you, going out to protest, the legislators stepped up. There was like police reform within 60 days of these events happening and transpiring. And I think one at least passed the House. I know there was a Republican one that got denied by the Democrats, but there was a Democrat one that I believe passed. So he's right. Absolutely. He's 100% right. And that's what I think people on the right are starting to understand. It's about creating a culture, a multicultural group of people who have the similar ideas. And the nice thing I like about a lot of people on the right is that they're not gonna, they might call you dumb or ignorant or, poke fun at you, but I don't see a lot of people on the right telling people to be canceled. I don't. That's most of what I see is people on the left canceling actors and filmmakers and editors at newspapers and pretty much anyone. They burned down a statue of an elk in Portland. What the heck did an elk do to anyone? But they don't care. This is not BLM. It's been hijacked. It's not BLM. It's Antifa militant left. The militant left, the people who want to burn everything to the ground and put socialism in its place. No, thank you. Let's continue.
It's going to be personal responsibility. That's what's going to change these things. You got people out here doing it to these kids, and they ain't nobody even snitching. They know who did it. They know who killed these kids. They ain't nobody snitching. It's going to have to be personal responsibility. Now, before anybody get on the bandwagon and say, oh, no, it's unique to the black community. I name a white Chicago anywhere. Name a white community that have as many shootings as Chicago. There's nowhere close. Nowhere close. I was a police officer. I patrolled the trailer parks. The gang violence and gun violence is nowhere near what it is in the black community.
I'm going to go ahead and stop this video after this one piece of content, but I just want to speak on what he's saying, how gang violence, I'm not a police officer, I was never on patrol or anything to that effect, and I'm just going to go off of what he says and what I've seen. I remember being a little kid and thinking to myself that I wouldn't listen to hip-hop music unless they talked about guns and being an outlaw. And that is mental programming. That's brainwashing. I think it's really, really peculiar that I've seen it. I have mixed race family members, and I've heard them say that that person talks white or that person acts white, and that doesn't really happen outside of the black community, not nearly as much. The fact that someone can be well-spoken and not talk with a lot of ebonics counts to them talking white is really a mental programming. It's a brainwashing to keep people ignorant. I think people who want to be well-spoken, who want to be well-educated, who want to speak with clarity and precision and, have articulate thoughts should be celebrated, not condemned or put down. And that is what I have seen in my limited experiences with the black community. For someone to say you're talking white because you're talking with clarity and precision is, what type of brainwashing do you have to experience to think that clarity and precision equals talking white? Like, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X spoke with more clarity and precision than a lot of the people in the trailer parks. And how did it get so far away where, in the 60s and 70s, you had these amazing, educated, celebrated people in the public sphere, and now one of the biggest people in the public sphere is Megan Thee Stallion, or, not to disrespect her, that's not my goal or intent, but a lot of the black community and the culture talks about awful, terrible things, inhumane things, hurting people, killing people, selling drugs, spending money on foolishness. No one needs 10 Louis Vuitton bags, but that's celebrated in the black community. Why? Why is that? Ask yourself that question. It doesn't make sense that most black celebrities promote Italian fashion designers in like German sports cars. Where is the sense of having your own? Marcus Garvey would have talked about, and Malcolm X talked about it too, like, have your own economy, have your own business, have your own group of people that you can call upon and help, instead of giving all your money to people who don't give a crap about you. It doesn't make any sense. But I think it's a programming, a brainwashing. The people in media think this is how black people wanna behave and act, and I think it messes with people's brains. There's a reason why Motown, less than 100 years ago, was one of the biggest cultural icons of the 20th century, and now we have Nicki Minaj, Meek Mill. I could go on, but most of these, Young Dolph, Yo Gotti, Lil Wayne, and I like a lot of these artists on occasion, because for me personally, I understand that's entertainment. I try to siphon off the words. Sometimes I can't even sing the words to myself, because it's like, I'm killing and I'm robbing and I'm taking people's money. It's like, I don't want to do that. That's not my choice. That's not who I want to be. That's not where I want to do the things I want to do. I don't, that's not who I am. And so I actually don't listen to as much hip hop as I did, 10 years ago. But I'm gonna put it there. We'll pick it up and just see what we can go and do and talk about with the rest of this video and the next one. So be sure to like, share, subscribe to this video if you enjoyed what I had to say, and be sure to donate to the GoFundMe of Sicaria's family if you have any extra money. I'm going to put the link in the description. And go give Officer Tatum a follow if you haven't already. He's a great commentator. I think it's great to get opinions and ideas from people who are not in your sphere so you can grow and change and be a better person. Take care. Peace.